Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 2023 NAF RFA Q&A webinar. I am Gabrielle Butter, the Associate Communications Officer here at NAF. We're just waiting a few more moments while more people are hopping on. All right. So before we get started, I just want to lay out a few things on how to navigate our Zoom webinar. If you have any questions today, we ask that you submit them using the Q&A feature or ask them using the chat box. We will try to answer all of your questions in the time allotted, but if we don't get to your question, we ask that you send your additional questions to our email at grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org. If you experience any technical issues throughout this meeting, please describe your issue in the chat box or personally message a NAF staff member. All right, and I'll go ahead. Before we get started, I want to provide a brief description of our team members speaking to you all today. On the call, we have Belton Moore, our programs officer, who will be facilitating this question and discussion period. While we begin our discussion, I'm going to be showcasing our frequently asked questions on our website, so give me a few moments to pull that out, but I'll go ahead and transition over to Belton Moore.
All right, thank you, Gabby. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're joining from. So excited to have you all here today. Again, I'm Belton Moore. I'm a member of the Lumbee Tribe. I'm a program officer with NAF. Live here in North Carolina, grew up on a farm and ranch. So this work is really important to me, and I'm so glad that it's important to you all as well. We're so excited to receive your applications. This is our last webinar, so we're going to reserve it all for Q&A. Any question you may have, please do feel free to answer. You'll still be able to get in contact with us over the next week by email and by phone. But if anything, if there's anything you'd like to know today, would love to give you a live answer right away. So you can go ahead and get your application submitted. So here we have our website. So you can just go on our website and do a look through. I'm sure you've done that already. But we have our full RFA document there that you can click on and download. You can read through that one last time. You have our links here for the general and youth applications. So a quick reminder, those have the same deadline, but they're two separate applications. So just make sure you're in the right portal. And if we see if something's in the wrong place, we can try and help move it around, but it helps us out a lot if you are applying through the correct portal with that one. So just another reminder, both applications close next Thursday, June 1st at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Please don't wait until the last minute. Our staff is amazing, but we're all in different time zones, so we're not able to assure you that we'll be able to respond to last minute questions that evening. So please do, up until that Thursday during the business day, please do feel free to reach out and we'll do our best to get back to you. Here's our email, grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org, and our phone number, 479-445-6226. If you call that number, you may get a voice message, but our staff are monitoring that voice, that inbox. So please feel free to leave a voicemail if you prefer, and we'll give you a call back. Here you just have our intro that goes over a little bit more about NAF if you don't already know about our organization, our history, our mission. And then we have our eligibility, our different eligible entities. So again, those are 501c3 organizations, nonprofits, and we allow for fiscal sponsors as well if you don't have your 501c3 status already. Educational organizations, CDFIs, or community development financial institutions, including native CDFIs, and tribal governments, both state and federally recognized, and their instrumentalities. This is really important here. And I see we have a few questions already, so I'll just wrap this description up and we can dive into that. But feel free to go ahead and answer your questions as well. We have plenty of time to get to all of them. But make sure that you are applying under the correct eligible entity type, and make sure that you submit those documents to prove that you have those different statuses. Funding areas, we have a lot of different funding areas. So that's something I'm sure you've already looked at this point. But we have general focus areas, and then we also have special focus areas, and these change year to year. So if you've applied in the past, that's something to look at, is make sure that the area that you're applying for is still within our RFA this year. Most things are the same, but we do have some new exciting areas as well. And make sure for those special focus areas that you're your organization is eligible for those. For instance, agriculture infrastructure projects are only for tribal governments and instrumentalities. So that's something that you'll need to look at. And then loan capital, re-granting capital, technical assistance, those things dealing with actually giving out loans to farmers and ranchers or for CDFIs only. We have our downloads. There's lots of documents that go with this, but it's really all just to help you put your application together. We have a lot of templates, so we do ask that you use those templates. If you have any questions about them at all, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to help with those. And then you can see we have our frequently asked questions, and those are later on the website as well, but you can download that and just look through and see if there's anything that sparks your interest, anything that you need to know. And then we have a checklist that can be really helpful in this last week. And so you can just go through that. That's in the application as well, but it really just makes sure that you have all of the different areas that you need for your application. You won't be able to submit your application without most of the information, but it's really helpful to just kind of have that checklist as you go through. Many of you may be working in the application in a Word document. So as you input that, you can check off those different items and make sure that your application is complete. And that's something we will be looking for. Unfortunately, you're not able to modify your application after the deadline. So please do make sure you have everything that you'd like to have in there by the deadline. And then webinars, this is the last webinar, but we have recordings of all of our webinars. I believe those are on the website as well. And you can go through and watch. There's about an hour-long presentation from our team that you can look at. And that has a lot of the information that we're going over here today, but in a lot more detail. So feel free to look over that if you haven't watched it already. I encourage that before you submit. And then again, our deadline is Thursday, June 1st. Here we have some video tutorials about financials. That's also really important to us. So if you have any questions about that, please do go ahead and reach out. And if you haven't reached out to your finance team, if you're in a larger organization, really encourage you to do that this week. We know the holiday is coming up. So if there's any documents that you need from your finance team, we would encourage you to reach out to them about that as soon as possible. And then we have all of our frequently asked questions that we've already received throughout this process in previous years. But today we'll go ahead and get into those that are being submitted now. All right, so the first one is, we have found that our access to credit depends on being able to document our revenues. So our application will focus on increasing produce sales through adding sales and marketing staff, improving our farm website, and setting up an on-site market store. Does increasing revenue qualify as an activity that improves access to credit? I think that's a really great start. I think the key here is just elaborating on your ability to really scale your operation. Obviously, those increased revenues are really important, and how you're going to leverage that when you go apply for a loan. And it may not be your organization applying for the loan, but the participants in that program, of teaching them how scaling up the organization is so important, but you also need additional capital, whether it's credit or equity, to scale up your operation. The next one is, I've joined this application process a bit late for my tribal employer. We're doing pretty well so far. I just have one question. We have an audit completed in April. This should answer just about every financial question you would have. We're a little bit behind in monthly reports, but the audit takes the reader through December 31st, 2022. Can that suffice for the financial questions? I believe that is sufficient. I would have to check an application, and we can get back to you if you don't mind emailing us that question as well, and I can just confirm. But December 31st of this past year should be great for that. And if you don't have your audit, your most recent audit, there are options to upload other documents, income statements, balance sheets that can support your application. But we really just asked you to give your most recent documents so that we can assess that. And then if you're awarded and we need to follow up on those audits, we could do that as well. And you can ask that question. You can send it to grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org. All right. Any more questions? I grew up on a tobacco farm here in North Carolina. And as we like to say, we're in the short rows now. So just 1 week left, and everybody's been working really hard. We're so excited to review the applications and get started on our big lift. And hopefully you all can relax and take a break after they're submitted. But until then, we're here. Anything you have, just let us know. And we'll stay on here for a few minutes as you think about your questions. I think we'll actually stay on here for quite a bit. So anything you have, just feel free to take your time and think about it and just let us know. All right, here's another question. Can we purchase an existing building under the agriculture infrastructure focus area? That is a really good question. Let me just refer to that section right quick and jog my memory. Yes, I think that would be something that would be eligible. So in that case, just make sure that you kind of detail, and in some areas, it's going to be really straightforward. Like if it's a processing plant, it's going to be really straightforward. The connection to native farming and ranching and access to capital. In other areas, if it's say an office building, okay, it's for storage and processing. Exactly. So just please do make that connection in your application and kind of spell it out for us of why you're choosing to use this existing building, any kind of upgrades that you foresee, having to be made to that building, those kinds of things. All right, another question. It's the question about using NAF funds to increase produce sales. Can you just email the answer? Yes, we can do that, no problem. All right, another question. We are applying for the general grant as a nonprofit, and the tribe that we serve is applying for a special focus area of the same grant. Is this something we should acknowledge in our application? That's a really good question. I think I always say that it's best to have all the information. So please feel free to acknowledge that if you'd like. And you can talk about how they're separate projects, and they may be serving the same community, but they're really separate projects with different focus areas. And so you can let us know that you've talked with the tribe as well, and that you all are in coordination, but you are kind of on separate tracks as far as how you're going to use these NAF funds to support your community. You're welcome. But yeah, that's always my philosophy, is as much information as possible. You said part of the application, part of the access to capital can be making education on how to apply for credit, et cetera, available to the entity. That's great. So our organization really focuses on serving individual native farmers and ranchers. So in most cases, it's one single farmer, group of farmers going to a lender and asking for a loan. So as far as the entity itself applying for credit, that's something that we might be interested in. But really, it's serving those individual native farmers and ranchers, kind of addressing the original harms of Keep Siegel and those plaintiffs and claimants. But as long as you can make a case for it in your application, we're open to evaluating it. And access capital is the number one thing that we're looking for. And if you're actually touching on folks applying for loans, applying for credit, that's going to be really important. Again, we'll be on here, so no rush to type your questions out. We'll be on here. But if Gabby, you want to just scroll down and kind of go through the different areas. So like I mentioned, eligibility is a really important area. So we have all those questions there about what constitutes an eligible entity and different factors. And if you're not a native-led organization, you can view that. And then a little bit below that, we have different areas. It's kind of broken up by different content areas of how you would want to find the question you're asking. All right, so we have a question in the chat from ampleharvest.org. It's a nationwide nonprofit that enables America's gardeners to donate surplus harvest to local food pantries across all 50 states. They've adapted their model to fill all the reservations across Indian country. It focuses backyard and community gardeners, not farmers. The greatest financial impact is on the improved health of hungry families. They get the food from a local food pantry. They do not impact commercial farming, agriculture whatsoever. We've had conflicting guidance on if we are fit. This is the only program of its kind in America, opening a floodgate of locally grown fresh food to food pantries at zero cost to the community. But again, the community impact is the healthy food, not farming or corporate capital. Any place our program can be a fit. First, I'd just like to say that's an amazing program. I have not heard about that yet, so it's really amazing to hear about that important work going on, and that's something that NAF has been involved in, working on different hungry issues across Indian country. So, as an organization, this is something that we definitely are aware of and have active efforts to address. And so, we'd love for you to reach out and see if we can connect you with some of our existing programs. As far as the RFA goes, it's kind of it's not an easy answer. So if you've watched our webinars, it sounds like you've talked to a few folks, you know that our funds come from the Keep Siegel v. Vilsack class action lawsuit or settlement. And so those were individual native farmers and ranchers who were applying for loans from the USDA Farm Service Agency, and they alleged that they experienced discrimination and were not awarded those loans, or if they were, they faced discrimination in loan servicing and those types of things. So for this grant cycle, we really do prioritize projects that will address those original harms, and that's our mission from the courts that we're charged with. So that is always our priority with these grants. So I'm not able to exactly say that it's not a fit or that it is, but it doesn't have to be commercial agriculture per se. So it doesn't have to be, it could be traditional foods, those kinds of things, but we are looking to support native farmers and ranchers, fishers, harvesters, and even community producers. But it's all with that lens of helping address those original harms of where people were not able to get loans and weren't able to scale up their businesses. So again, there's a lot of work going on in this space. So I'd actually encourage you to reach out. It sounds like you may have reached out already, and we can talk with our leadership and kind of get you a definitive answer or guidance. Again, it might not be as kind of straightforward as yes or no, unfortunately, but we can provide more guidance there. And just to refer, you can refer in our RFA to the different definitions of farmer and rancher that may be helpful. And so that is a broad definition. We include folks from all different kind of categories within farming and ranching. So anybody producing food and fiber, so livestock, fisheries, aquaculture, forest products, and community-based agriculture. So it's definitely, something that there is potential, but we actually need to see that access to capital piece. So that's a really long answer, but please do reach out and maybe we can consult with our leadership and get a more straightforward answer for you. All right, here's another question. We are trying to create entrepreneurs through a farm to school program. So in essence, they are the farmer. And that, I believe, was tied to another question. Not sure. So yeah, that was a kind of a response to the access to capital, how to apply for credit. Yep. So absolutely anything trying to create entrepreneurs through farm to school, that's definitely something that we are interested in supporting. Another question, does an Alaskan seafood processing plant such business owned by natives qualify? Specifically, the purchase of the business from an Alaskan tribe by an Indian-owned LLC. Purchase of the business from an Alaskan tribe by. So if I understand correctly, you're asking if an LLC could purchase a business from an Alaskan tribe. So LLCs are not one of our eligible entities. So the tribe would be, but if the LLC is trying to receive the grant to purchase from the tribe, that would not be something that we could fund. But maybe if you could provide some more clarification. As far as seafood processing, that is something that we certainly include within our definition of native agriculture. So that is definitely something that you could apply for, as well as Alaska Native tribes, villages, corporations. That's something that those entities are eligible as well. Let's see, I think I've gotten all the questions so far. But feel free to keep sending them in. Yeah, Gabby has here pulled up. You can see a little bit more about the different eligible entities. And that's something that we get a lot of questions about. So I know it's not exactly, there's different kind of gray areas for different organizations, and some organizations may fall under two different entity types. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We can't tell you exactly which one to apply under, but we can explain the differences between the different entity types and what you would be eligible for. All right, so another question is, we plan to submit a proposal for an umbrella feasibility study examining different potential agricultural businesses in our region. Is this type of program implicitly related to access to capital, or do we need to explain this? So I'd always say, please do explain the connection. And actually in the application, you will have a specific question about access to capital and how it ties back. So you'll have the opportunity to explain that. We understand, our team absolutely understands that potential is there. But it's always great if we're able to have that direct explanation when we're evaluating and kind of looking at different proposals of how it's going to benefit that community and those native producers in that region. So please do explain it. It doesn't need to be a whole page. It doesn't need to be a long essay. Straight to the point. We're not looking at the kind of length or anything like that. It's really just our own understanding. And if you can detail the different ways that you see that feasibility study contributing to the future of native ag in your community, as much information as possible there is always beneficial. All right, so follow up on our previous question regarding the Alaskan Seafood Processing Facility. The LLC is 100% Indian owned. If I applied as an individual tribal member, also a fisherman, fish buyer, fish processor, would I as a fisherman be eligible? Unfortunately, we're not allowed to fund individuals. That's from our trust agreement from the courts. So we are required to work through these 4 different eligible entity types. So they will apply and receive a grant from NAF, and then they will in turn serve you. The good thing about that is they are allowed to do re-grants to individual producers. And there's a stipulation, they can't go in and say that, a certain person is going to be a recipient of their grant. That's that's outside the kind of the bounds of our process, but they are eligible to do re-grants or to do loans to individual producers. So that's something, the application is due in a week, but if you're able to work with an organization in your community to encourage them to support producers like yourself, that would be something that we'd absolutely encourage. But as far as us funding individuals directly, unfortunately, we're not able to do that. All right, another question. In regards to advocacy, my nonprofit promotes solar and green energy projects for farmers and ranchers on their unused parts of their property. We promote more energy independence for farmers and ranchers that can help them develop a sustainable energy source and potential revenue source for their properties. My question is, can funds be used to help advocate for energy development, such as development, project management, and grant writing for projects on our reservation? Yeah, that's a really good question. This is something I haven't seen a lot with our current grantees, but that in no way says that you cannot do this for a future project. I'm just trying to think through the different aspects. We know energy is really important to native agriculture and to Indian country at large. And if you are specifically working with those farmers and ranchers to bring energy to their property, I think that's something that you could make a case for. Especially if it's helping them be more independent and more sustainable. We do, look at climate. That's been a special focus area in the past. So that's something that we're definitely attuned to. For this one, I may need you to reach out and let us follow up with our team, our leadership on that one, just so that we can be sure we're leading in the right direction. But as far as energy and agriculture, we absolutely understand that interplay. And again, the kind of end goal is always to bring it back to access to capital, and it seems that you are. Feel free to send in any more questions. And I know we've gotten a lot of kind of content focused questions, but anything as simple as how do I submit my application? Does it auto save? Those kinds of things. Your application usually does auto save as you work on it, but always if you see a save button, doesn't hurt to go ahead and save it as you continue to work on it. But please do make sure it is submitted, and you should get an automated email as soon as that is done. And if you don't, for some reason, please reach out to us. You can have your entire application filled out, but if it's not submitted, unfortunately, we won't be able to consider it. So please make sure you see that email. If you don't get it, if it's in your spam or something, and you just don't see it, reach out and we can provide confirmation that we have received your application. I just want to say we really appreciate your hard work. We have the pleasure of reading, several applications every year, quite a few actually, and it's not lost on us the amount of work that you all, as grant writers and as applicants, put into those applications. And even just coming to a Q&A like this today, we really appreciate it. And we are here to support you. The RFA is a major part of our work, but we have a lot of other programs that we're running alongside the RFA. So if there's anything that we can do in the meantime, so you'll apply within the next week, and we'll take a few months to review review your applications and hopefully approve as many as we can. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out if there's anything that we can do to support your work. We're always here to be a resource. And if we don't have the resources that you're looking for, please reach out anyway, and we can connect you with another organization. So if you're an individual farmer and rancher, just because we're not able to, within the confines of our trust agreement, we're not able to grant to you directly as an individual, there are a lot of organizations that have direct support for you, especially in this moment. We would love for you to reach out, and we can help put you in contact with some of those organizations. All right. So I don't see any more questions. We will stay on here uh, for maybe another 30 minutes or so. We'll just go camera off. Well, there's a question. There we go. Access to capital and agricultural risk management. Please explain. That is an amazing question. I've been honored to participate in the Extension Risk Management Education Conference the past 2 years. So thank you for that question. So we view access to capital as kind of broad. So it's very broad, actually, and risk management is as well. Really anything that kind of strengthens your case when you go to that lender to ask for that loan. So risk management, especially in today's world, is super important, whether it's talking about climate, natural disasters, those kinds of things, or anything. Well, when you're looking at the economy overall that can be a threat to your operation. The more that you are able to get ahead of those items and talk about the different practices that you're employing in your operation to manage those risks, to mitigate those risks, that is important when you go to that lender. So if you're working with, for instance, native farmers and ranchers to increase their risk management strategies and to educate them about the different tools available to them, that is inherently tied to that access to capital piece. Lenders are always looking at risk, and we also want to support native farmers and ranchers outside of the kind of access to capital piece, and just making sure that they are kind of resilient and are able to sustain themselves through different challenges and different disasters that come. Feel free to ask a follow-up question if that's not if that didn't answer your exact question, but risk management, and I believe it's noted in the application as well. It's something that we here at NAF have worked on for honestly the past 5 years that we've been in existence. It's something we'll continue to work on, and we view it as really important for our producers that we're serving. How will the government default, if it happens, impact this program? That is an amazing question. It's the first time I've received that question. So hopefully it does not happen at all. I'll just say that. But the good news is we are entirely private. We're a private charitable trust. So our funds did come from a settlement with the United States government, but at this point they're completely private. So I'm not an expert on the defaults and everything, but I would say, and this is something, if you're particularly interested, feel free to reach out and we can get you a better answer from our leadership. But I would say, from my perspective, we're not a government funded program, so that wouldn't be an issue. But I'm sure, if there is a default, we could see a lot more issues in the economy at large. So all organizations, even nonprofit private charitable trusts like ours, would be affected. But I'm not sure, if we're in that situation, there's going to be a lot more issues. So as far as the funds being available, that should not be an issue. These are really good questions today. Put me on the spot. But again, we appreciate it. We would rather you ask a question today and be able to continue working on your application over the next week than than not ask it and wish you had later. And so thank you, Whitney, for putting that link into the chat. So it speaks a lot more about access to capital, kind of just reiterates a lot of what we said and what's in our webinar. It goes into the history of Keep Siegel and NAF and our efforts here today. But I would say the number one takeaway is, or kind of two takeaways, from myself as a reviewer in the past, is to just, really interpret everything as broad and lay it out for us of how you can fit into those different definitions, or how you can expand those definitions of native agriculture, access to capital. This is this is our fourth or fifth grant cycle. So we've done this for a few rounds, but we absolutely haven't seen everything. So just because you haven't seen a grant that we've made already that's addressing that particular issue, doesn't mean that that's not something that we could fund. So please do reach out to us if you have any questions. But as long as you're able to explain it and to make your case, that's all that we ask for. All right, another question. We are a nonprofit organization directly engaged in indigenous agriculture work. We're the agricultural producer that we are looking to support so that we can buy and maintain land. Would this be an eligible use for this funding? Okay, so you're the nonprofit and you are directly producing agricultural products, and you are looking for funds to maintain your work. So I would say, yes, that would be something that we could support. But we would like to see in some way that you are serving kind of those producers in your community as well. I'm sure that you have other folks involved. And that may be folks that are members or kind of, staff members of your organization or board members that are involved. Really going back to that access to capital piece, we're looking to support kind of the scaling of native owned agriculture operations. So nonprofits are a key piece in that kind of economy and ecosystem. But if you're able to show that you're supporting kind of entrepreneurs, business owners in your community, that would be a plus as well. Let's see. How much constraint is put on materials and supplies? For instance, a small tractor used for training and use around the farm garden facility. So for that one, we do allow for materials and supplies. So I would say just use your discretion there, especially kind of in the context of how much you're requesting overall. So if you're just requesting the entire grant for that one tractor, that could be really important. And if you're making the case for it, that's something we could consider. But we want to know that, these funds and these projects are anywhere from 12 to 24 months. Obviously a tractor is going to last hopefully much longer than that. So that's something that you could detail for us. And you could just let us know how that's going to help sustain your organization. But we also are really interested in the impacts that it's making within that grant period. So again, it's not, kind of a yes or no question. Yes, we do fund materials and supplies. But as far as the amount for those, I would say use your discretion and just make your case for it. All right, another question. How detailed should the targeted education objectives section be? I'm assuming it is more like an outline than a full description. That is correct. So for the objectives, we're just looking, I think it says 3 to 5. So you can write out your objective, maybe kind of a sentence or so. And then I think there's different, you can put in your milestones and goals, those kinds of things. So really, this is going to come into play a lot more if you're awarded with your report. So keep that in mind. We're going to be looking back at those objectives, and you'll have an opportunity to give us updates on those specific objectives. So make sure they kind of encompass everything that you're looking to do as much as you can within your project, and make sure it's something that it's actionable, that you can report back to us every quarter, actually. and let us know how you're making progress on those specific objectives. As far as the review, they were important for that as well, but we're going to be looking at the narrative too. So if you want to focus on your narrative and build your application based on the narrative and kind of reflect that in your objectives, that would be great. So we're looking at both, but the objectives, I would say, come into play a lot more with your reporting and compliance after you're awarded the grant. That's another great question. I appreciate you asking that one. Just kind of reiterate, we receive a lot of grants, and we understand not all organizations have grant writers. That's absolutely not something that we require. So just do your best faith effort. And we understand Indian country. We are from Indian country. We understand that there are capacity challenges. You may not have time to spend months on end writing a grant application. And we hope that that is not a requirement for our application, just based on the length and everything. So we've tried to make it as straightforward as possible. But we understand that, we're not looking at grammar and those kinds of things. So we really just want to understand your organization better and the project that you are proposing. And it's just a reminder, we do have our full webinar on our website already. So you can go look there. And if there's any gaps that you're sensing from today, or even from looking at the Q&A on the website, please go to the webinar, and hopefully it'll address all the different areas of the application. Please post a list of known CDFIs that service Pacific Northwest and Alaska. I think, and I believe maybe we already have your email in the chat, or you were going to reach out. But if not, if you could reach out, the thing is we don't have your email right now, and that's something that we may need to take a look at as soon as we get off this webinar, to send that list, because there are, and I can name one of our grantees, Spruce Root, that works in Alaska. They're a CDFI. They're in Juneau, Alaska, but there are other CDFIs like Occupy Tom that are based in South Dakota, but they serve communities nationwide. So those two would be a good start, but don't want to miss any. So I see you're sending your contact info, and our team will take that down, and we can reach out with a larger list. And you can actually go on the CDFI Funds website and download a list of all the certified native CDFIs. For context, there's about 1,000 CDFIs total, and there's about 65, 70 native CDFIs specifically. Okay, how much or at all does the inclusion of CVs within the app? I think you're asking how much does it play into the review? So that's honestly, with that piece, we're just trying to understand your organization and the team that's working on it. We understand that the great ideas, also need great people to carry out those ideas. And so we're really cognizant of that as we look at these projects. We know it's, like I said, 12 to 24 months is a short time period to be able to accomplish a lot of work. So if you can just show us that these folks are involved in the community, they understand the community, they understand agriculture, that's important. We don't, I wouldn't say we need a CV or even a resume for every single person. If you can, and if they don't have that, I wouldn't go out and create a resume or a CV just for this grant application. Please don't do that. But I believe there's a section for you to list out the different qualifications they may have. Then there's a narrative portion as well. You can just speak about it. But with that part, I would say we're really looking to just know that the staff, there has the capacity to work on this grant, and to really carry out the project, and also that kind of relationship with the native farming and ranching community in your area, to make sure that you will be able to carry out your project effectively. Another question. We received a NAP grant in 2020 and 2021. Is it likely or unlikely that we could be funded again this year, or are you looking for new applicants? So I'd say yes and yes. So we are able to fund applicants several times. So there's no limit on how many times you can apply. And we absolutely encourage you to reapply. So it would need to be and I'm sure you already know this, but it would need to be kind of a new project or kind of a phase two of the project. We can't really fund a project twice if it's just, copy and paste. But if you're doing something like scholarships, you could have a new cohort of scholarship recipients every year. That's totally acceptable. But if you're serving, if you're doing the same class every single year with the same native farmers and ranchers or with the same youth, that's something that we wouldn't be able to fund. We always are looking for new applicants, and so I don't think those two have to be mutually exclusive. It is a competitive process, so we're not able to guarantee that anybody will be funded. And that previous NAF grant kind of grantee status, really doesn't play in a lot into our review. That's something obviously we're aware of. We've been working with you. We understand the project that you're working on, and that's something. Please feel free to reference your successes from your previous projects. But I wouldn't, have any qualms about applying again at all. And you can build on that success. And obviously we'll know that you're a current applicant. But we again are looking for new applicants as well. We encourage everybody to apply. All are welcome. Really great questions. But I would say in these last, I know we still have quite a few people on with us. So I'm sensing that you may have a question that you'd like to ask. So please feel free to go ahead. You've seen it can be anonymous. So feel free to go ahead and send it anonymously or not. We're open either way, or you could send it in the chat. You could send it directly to me, but feel free to reach out and ask your questions now. This is our last scheduled webinar of this year. So we are here. But in these last few minutes, I would say if there's anything that you need from us before you submit your application, information or just clarification, technical questions, please do let us know that. We want to get as many folks as possible across the finish line, hopefully all of our applicants. So please let us know if there's anything you need from us, anything that we can do today, tomorrow, next week to get your application submitted. Again, our deadline is next Thursday, so 1 week left, June 1st at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Would encourage you to get it in. I know it's easy to say, but a day early is always great. And again, you can wait for that that automatic email that will come through notifying you that we've received your application. And if you don't see that, please do reach out because we want to make sure that we have your application when we begin reviewing it. Again, youth in general have the same deadline this year. Last year, they were about 2 weeks apart, but we have brought them together again for the same June 1st deadline. Any more questions? I think we'll stay on because I know some folks were used to the previous webinars. We had our presentation for about an hour, and then Q&A after that. So don't want to miss anybody. So I think we'll stay on until a little past 4 p.m. my time, Eastern. But we'll be here. If you have any questions, I'll come back on camera and answer them. But if not, we appreciate you all attending. Please do let us know if you have any questions. I know I've said it a million times, but we really mean it. We have a whole team here just waiting to help you with those questions. And feel free to reach out at any time and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And please do submit your applications. As a previous reviewer, what are your best tips for first-time applicants? That's a really good question. I think I've mentioned it. Just, don't assume that folks understand your community. Like I said, we have a really experienced staff here, and we're really, I think we're really in touch with different Native communities across Indian country. But unfortunately, our staff is relatively small, so we're not able to understand every single community, every single facet of Native agriculture. So when in doubt, just take a few sentences to explain something to us, or it could be as simple as referring us to a website where we can learn more ourselves. We don't want to put all the burden on you all, but just kind of lay out that roadmap of where you're coming from, your community, agriculture, and kind of its role in your community, historically and today, and how you view that role going forward, and how this grant application can really be pivotal in scaling up native ag operations in your community. So I would say, like I said, we're not looking for grammar or really fancy applications, those kinds of things, but just that sense that you're passionate about this work, and the staff there has the capacity to work on this, and is really committed to seeing it through. And then logistical things, just having all the right uploads as much as you can, whether it's financial documents or your budget for this project is particularly important. We're going to look at that and make sure that everything lines up. So you have a spot to put in your budget request, kind of in a box, and then you have your Excel sheet, and then you have a budget narrative. So really simple, but make sure all those line up. And we're not kind of viewing that negatively if it's off by 2 cents, but just to make sure, we're looking at a lot of applications. So as much as you can, make sure everything is accurate and it lines up with your request. And another good point, thank you, Whitney, is you can actually download the entire application before you even start your kind of request in the system. So if you're new to this, and if you are, please do not worry. I think a week and you can look at the application. If you already have your idea and everything, you just have to lay it out in the application. That's absolutely possible, but you can actually go, here's our RFA. So you can go to the RFA, kind of read through and get a sense of the different parameters of the application. And then you can go on our website and download a PDF of all the questions. So there is one caveat here. It's a really long PDF because, as you've noticed, we have a lot of different entities and categories within our application. So you're going to see a lot of questions that don't necessarily pertain to you. So you can just get a sense of the questions that are out there. For your project proposal, we're going to ask for a budget. We're going to ask for a narrative, and we're going to ask for information on how it's going to impact access to capital. We're going to ask for kind of a list of your governing entity, your board, and those kinds of things. So you can get a sense of that. And then if you're pretty sure you're going to apply, you can go and create the application and everything, create your account if you don't already have one. And then you can go ahead and start inputting that information over the next week. But we ask that if you're still on the fence, please, do download that question list first. Because if you create an application, and I can actually go in and see those applications, And if you create an application and you don't end up applying for whatever reason, we're really going to take a hard look at ourselves, and our board is as well, to ask ourselves why you didn't end up applying. So as a person in this webinar and helping to get you across the finish line, we really would appreciate, if you are on the fence of applying or not applying, or just curious, just look at that question list first. But if you're ready to go ahead and pull the trigger, please do go ahead and create your application, create your account, and go ahead and get in there today and start working on it. You have time before that deadline next week. Any more questions? And there'll also be an opportunity. There's always an opportunity, but for you to provide feedback. So I know that's something you're not necessarily thinking about right now, but if you see something in your application, you're like, this doesn't really make sense for my community or for my organization, please do make note of that. Feel free to go ahead and let us know. Or even after you submit, after you're awarded, please do feel free to let us know after those decisions come out at any time, things that we can improve for next year. Like I said, NAF has been around since about 2018. So it's relatively new organization, and we're not perfect. So we're always looking to improve. All right, here's another question. Could we use the NAF grant to start a new project, which would include buying animals? Yeah, so that is absolutely, animal agriculture is kind of, I would say, the bedrock of native agriculture, especially when we look at the keep super claimants. Most of them were cow-calf producers. So, the question, as far as animals, I think that's something I would have to check and just make sure that that is eligible. Um, the specific act of purchasing the animals with the grant funds. So if you don't mind reaching out, and we'll just get clarification on that. But as far as kind of the broad idea of teaching folks to raise animals, those kinds of things, that is absolutely spot on. But I would just ask you to reach out, and we can get you a 100% answer on that one. Still have quite a few folks. Please come on with your questions. I would say we'd be here all day, but I'm sure y'all don't want to be here all day. So all night. But we are going to be working pretty hard. I know when you click submit, like I said, it's a lot of work on your part, but please do rest assured that we're going to be working as soon as we get those applications. As soon as we wake up on Friday, June the 2nd, we are going to start reviewing those applications. And so that's another reason why it's so important to meet that deadline, because there's not any kind of there's no leeway with that deadline, unfortunately, because like I said, we're going to be looking at them and go ahead and start our review process, so we can go ahead and do our reviews and get them to our board, and we can make those decisions and announce them as soon as possible. And again, Gabby, this will be online, correct? I was saying within the next couple of days. If you want to refer back to any of the questions that were asked today.
Yes, I do want to go ahead and point you down at the end of this website. At the very bottom is where we house all of our webinars. The first two have the full presentations for both the general and then the youth. And then we have our slide decks at the bottom here. And then the remaining parts of them for those next two webinars are going to be the question and answer section, which we host live for all of our webinars. So this is where it'll be uploaded. Feel free to come back here. We'll wait just a couple more minutes in case anyone else hops on. Otherwise, we'll close it out today.
All right. So in regards to the previous question about advocacy of green energy, Do we need a specific farmer or rancher for the project, or is it enough to advocate and explore the potential generally? Okay, so again, I'm not sure if I already suggested this, but if you want to reach out and kind of explain a little bit more, I'm assuming that you're advocating maybe to a tribal government or just generally, or even to, at the federal level for green energy. Advocacy is one of our four mission areas. But as far as a specific farmer and rancher, you don't have to name a certain person, but if you can say we're working with, this community in this region of the US, or these communities, we're in touch with these tribal leaders, and we've held roundtables in their communities, and we understand that this is important to them. Or if you're coming from a tribe yourself, or I believe it was a nonprofit, but if you're kind of tribally based, that's inherent. But we just want to understand that you're in touch with the community, and that it's really something that they're going to be involved in. So if you're going to have, say fly-ins to DC to advocate for green energy and ag, you can let us know about those plans, obviously, but let us know that you are in touch with those community members and those producers that will be benefiting from your advocacy. Hope that's helpful, but please feel free to reach out, and we have a good team here. We can put our heads together and get you a more clear answer if that's not helpful. But that's actually really interesting. Hopefully you'll apply, and we can learn more about that kind of idea that you have there. All right, we'll just give it just a couple more minutes, and we can let you all go about your days. But thank you for joining. We really appreciate all the interest that we're receiving for this RFA, and we're really set on providing the best service to every single applicant that we can. So we have our team here just waiting to answer your questions and providing any information that we can. And to reach out to us, you can use the information on the contact information page. So just here, Gabby has it on the screen. That email, grants@nativeamericanagriculturefund.org. Super long. So you might want to just make sure that you have the correct, and copy and paste from Whitney, but make sure it's spelled out correctly. That will be your resource for any questions regarding this application. You might find other emails on the website. You can always email those, and we'll simply just forward it on. But in the interest of time, we would ask you to email this one, because people are looking at that one every single hour of the day, the working day, I should say. But you might find staff emails, those kinds of things. But this would be your best resource for getting in touch with folks that can answer your specific questions about the RFA. And if you're just not joining, I mentioned this earlier, but normally we have, for our webinars, we have kind of an hour-long presentation that is available for you to watch right now on the website. So you can just go to our website and look for the grants tab in the 2023 RFA. So you can go watch that. It has a presentation from our CEO and from some other staff members, and kind of lays out all the different areas. But today we've decided to really use this session to have just Q&A for our applicants. So we've been on here about an hour. Seems like we've answered quite a few questions. Let's see, over 30 questions, but we're going to be on here for just a few more minutes. But I just wanted to make sure if you're just joining, you weren't confused. So if you're just joining, please go ahead and get in your questions now.
Hi, everyone. I also just want to reiterate how you get to this page that we're on right now. So if you started off from the home page, Let me load this up here. You'll have this big old banner bar that you can select and it'll take you straight to the page, or you can go over to our grants, select this 2023 RFA here, and it will take you to the page that we were on. Just in case you want to find all of these resources. And again, at the very bottom of this page, we have all of our webinars here, as well as our slide decks. So if you want to look at the general webinar slides or the youth webinar slides, they're also available to you.
And Gabby, if you want to show folks the next tab over, the grantees tab up at the top, that's where you can go look at every single grantee we've had since 2019. And you can read kind of, we call them blurbs, just a few sentences about their project. So this could give you an idea of what we funded in the past. I will say the RFA is different every year. Our mission never changes of serving Native farmers and ranchers, increasing access to capital, but the different categories might change. So just kind of be cognizant of that, but you can see the different things we funded. The fast track grantees down at the bottom, those were from a separate process before NAF was created. But you can look at those. It'll give you a good idea of the geographical breakdown of areas that we've been involved with, and feel free to reach out to our current grantees as well to collaborate with them. We only have a week, so we understand that if you're just not finding this resource, that's not much time. But going forward, even after you submit your application, I would encourage you to reach out to those grantees and learn more about their work. All right, well, doesn't look like we have any more questions, Gabby. I think we would be safe to close it out for today.
Yep. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We appreciate your questions.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.